What's going on, guys? Solo here. I've been getting a lot of requests to make a video like this, basically going over what I do and some fixes for input lag. So it initiated on Twitter. I reached out to a few people to help them out, and then more and more DMs started flooding in, asking me to do it for them. And it's a lot of steps, and a lot of it doesn't apply to everybody, so it just depends. So I decided to make this video kind of going over everything. But before we get into it, I do want to say I'm sorry if the recording is like a little bit bright and a little whitewashed out. It looks normal on my end. It's just some NVIDIA settings that I have to tweak with my HDR on my monitor. So it looks normal for me. I'm sorry if it's a little bit bright for you guys, but let's get into the video. We're going to be talking about input lag from your PC, from your network, from Steam, and in-game itself. And if you're not on Steam and you're on Epic, I do have a little bit of information for Epic as well. It applies to Epic, but most of it's for Steam. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright guys, to start it off, we're going to be going over your input lag from your PC itself. Now this also applies to USB ports, your controller wire, and your controller. Personally, I'm on a PS4 controller. I have this like Kevlar wire from Amazon. It was like 12 bucks. If y'all really want it, I'll link it in the description. And there's a few other things that I utilized for PC optimization. Let's start with the easiest ones. First and foremost, it's like power settings, stuff like that. I have two articles for you guys. I'll link them both in the description. Basically, it's 20 tips and tricks and some other like PC optimizations, basic settings and stuff you can go through and actually make changes for, and it'll help your PC performance. So I have these two. I'll link them in the description. It's basic settings. That's why my text, my font looks a little weird, stuff like that. So it does help your actual performance. It helps with how much RAM and like CPU your computer is utilizing in certain areas. It also helps with your GPU accelerated performance as well. So there's like a bunch of tweaks and like prioritizing performance over power, stuff like that. So I definitely recommend reading both of those and trying to implement some and seeing if it helps you out. It's more for FPS and like minimal input lag gains, but you may feel it, you may not. So that would be step one in my recommendation. Alright guys, moving on, for the input lag from your PC, we're going to take a look at this Optimizer application. Please use everything that I suggest at your own risk. I've been using this for about 6 months now. It hasn't given me any problems, and I personally recommend it, but again, use at your own risk. So once you open it up, you're going to run it as administrator, obviously. I already had it open. You only really care about the first 2 pages. If you trust yourself and you want to deep dive a little bit more, you can go into more, but I didn't really mess with any of this UWP app stuff, but I do know that these 2 pages are the most important here. And for the first page, I have everything on except for disable system restore. If there's some things that you do want to leave on, you can leave them on, but that's the only thing that I don't have checked off. And then for Windows 10, restore classic file explorer, exclude drivers from updates, and disable spell checking are the only 3 things that I do not have turned on. So those are my settings for this application. Again, I've been using it for about 6 months. I personally recommend it. However, use everything that I suggest at your own risk, guys. Up next, we have HIDUSBF. Most of you guys know what this is. This is overclocking your controller. I'm just going to do a basic rundown of this. Most of you already know, and you could probably look it up if you really wanted to. I personally do overclock my controller, so I'm going to show you how to do that and what it does, kind of explain what it does. So you would open up this file after you download it and extract it. Again, the link will be in the description. Use at your own risk. You will go into driver and you will click setup.exe. It will ask you to run it as administrator. Once it opens, you will have this, right? And it shows mice initially. These are your 3 devices that are plugged in that are registering. As that, you click all, and then you will go and you will find the device that is called, if I can extend this, the audio endpoint headset mic wireless controller. This device is your actual controller, and initially it will say no, just like everything else, and it will say default, which is an option down here, and the B interval should be 5. That is your initial information. Keep in mind, again, I am on PS4 controller, so the only polling rate that I can change to is 1000 down here. If you are on PS5 controller, I believe you get up to 8000. You want to set that to 8000. So once again, what I would do is I would take it from default and I would put it on 1000. I would click install service. It's going to pop this up. You're going to hit OK. It's going to install it. Make sure you have filter on device checked off and you are good to go. You will unplug your controller, plug it back in. That beat interval will initially be 5. Once you replug it back in, it will be 1, and that means you did overclock your controller successfully. So if this beat interval is showing up as 1, you overclocked it successfully. Another thing I did want to mention about this, please keep in mind when your computer has an update and you update your computer, whether that be a basic driver update, any Windows KB updates, any update that requires a restart, you will have to re-overclock your controller. And when you log back in, it may still say beat interval 1, but you will have to actually overclock it to get the effects, and you will notice a difference. All you have to do is hit install service. If you really want, I like to just go back to default, install service, unplug, replug, and then go back to 1000, install service, unplug, replug, and just like let it reset itself completely, and then you're good to go. I do this every day as a precaution. I don't wait for an update. I just do this every day when I get on. It's kind of in my habit of things to do just to kind of keep a baseline for myself. So yeah, that will be the basics of overclocking your controller. Up next, we're going to go over NVIDIA settings. I know this doesn't really have much to do with input lag compared to your actual performance of your computer and how your game is going to perform, but in turn, that kind of does deal with input lag. But anyway, I will have a video linked in the description. It is for the NVIDIA Profile Inspector. This is a little bit more in-depth settings for the NVIDIA settings. The guy who made the video is really good. Remember, guys, everything I link, just dive into at your own risk, but he does have some very good talking points and good information. So I 10 out of 10 recommend that video, especially if you want to learn more about this application. But for basic NVIDIA settings, I use global settings over everything because really all I do is play Rocket League. I sometimes dive into Valorant, but mostly it's Rocket League. So these are my NVIDIA settings. You can easily find like which ones to check off online, just a simple Google search. You know, I use fixed refresh for my monitor. Low latency mode is on ultra, 30 frames per second for background applications. Obviously, you want your GPU to be doing the rendering. So these are just basic settings. You pause the video whenever you like if you want to copy them and go through them. But yeah, I'll try to find an article that's kind of similar to my settings, and I'll link that in the description as well. And then, of course, like I said before, you have the NVIDIA Profile Inspector. Sorry for the loud noise. And then once this opens, this is what it looks like. These are all of your settings. There's a lot of information to dive into in here. Like I said, I'll have the video linked, and inside of his description on the video is the download link for this application. Follow his instructions. He has a lot of good points, and he helped me configure mine, so whatever you see on his is what's on mine. And for the last part of the input lag from PC section of this video, we're going to go over something called MSI Utility v3. Now, I actually learned about this from Ravena, I think her name is. I'll link her video in the description as well. She has a really long video on the heavy car bug and input lag in Rocket League, and it's a very good video. I think it's like an hour and 20-something minutes. I've watched it probably twice now, through and through, so it's a really good video. She does a lot of good explaining about input lag and like different things in the game and how your network interacts with the game, and there are some things from this video that you'll notice I got from her initially, and this is mostly one of them. So when you download it, you open up this application, you'll run it as administrator, and it is interrupt priority. This and your interrupt moderation from your network are two things that I got from her. But let's start with this. First off, be very careful when you are messing with these settings. I would definitely recommend checking out her video, diving into the entire thing and learning more about what this does. If you want, just go ahead and copy my settings, because I'm pretty much nailed everything in here for my PC, and I'll have my specs and stuff in the description or earlier in the video with the intro, something like that. They'll be in there, so you kind of get an idea if you have a similar PC to me what you should do with your settings. But yeah, so these are mine. You know, I'm putting my USB controllers on high priority, obviously, and my graphics card is also on high, and everything else is mostly low, but it's just prioritizing how your CPU is handling the devices, if I remember correctly. Like I said, go check out her video. It'll be linked in the description. But yeah, if you want to copy my settings once you download this app, this is my current settings. You can pause the video here, or if you want to experiment on your own, you know, be very careful and go check out her video. She's got a lot of good information on it. Alright guys, now diving into the network section, I'm going to give you a little bit of information on my actual network setup. So we do have Spectrum, which down here is the only option. I live in Louisiana. It's our current only option that gives us a gigabyte download speeds, and I think we have about 100 megs upload. It is not fiber internet. We do not have fiber. Once we get an option for fiber, I will be switching. Hopefully it'll be AT&T because I hear really good things about them. But yeah, so I sit on about 50 ping on like Atlanta servers for like Valorant and stuff like that. And then I think it's around high 60, low 70 ping for Virginia servers, and then 30s to 40s for Texas servers. So that's about the ping I get. So I don't have the best ping in the world. I used to have 8 ping when I lived in Washington, D.C. I don't have that anymore. And I even went on a vacation to Texas for a few weeks. Well, it wasn't really much of a vacation, but and I had 8 ping there as well. So, you know, I don't have the best ping and we don't have the best ISP, but we work with what we got. I do have a Nighthawk. I think it's a Netgear Nighthawk, the 800 or one of the high-end ones, very high-end. I think it was like $500. That can do like 10 gigs or something like that, even though we don't get those speeds. That is our router, and then we have the base router from our modem from our ISP that also does a gigabyte. I do have other modems that I've tried. They all perform the same as the one from the actual ISP. So that's our basic hardware that we have. We're running just standard Cat6 Ethernet cables around the house, so nothing special. Pretty much baseline to what most people do have. And then we're going to go over the interrupt moderation and Ethernet port settings. Remember, guys, it's always best to connect your computer to your router or to your modem if you're allowed to do that. With an Ethernet cord, it's always going to perform better than Wi-Fi in most cases. Then we're going to go ahead and dive into the Ethernet section. So I do have a USB to Ethernet adapter that I sometimes use. It depends on how I feel like my network card in my computer is performing. But right now I am on my network card in my computer. We're going to go into properties, and this is where you're going to go into configure and advanced, and this is where you will find the interrupt moderation and interrupt moderation rate. And I have mine set to disabled. Normally it is enabled, and then the rate is normally set to adaptive, I believe. You turn that off and you disable it, and now your computer will communicate with the router as many times as it wants, I believe is how it works. Again, Ravena's video goes over this. I'll have it linked in the description if you want to learn more, but those are the settings that I use. I do recommend going watch our full video, start to finish. It is worth it if you have big problems on the game. So 10 out of 10, recommend her video. Go watch it if you want, or you could just copy my settings, but that is what we're working with for the network part of this video. Alright guys, up next we're going to go over Steam performance settings to reduce input lag in Steam itself. So you're going to go up here, you're going to click settings, and it's going to bring up this window that I currently have pulled up. You're going to go to in-game. I use the Steam overlay for best performance. It's recommended to turn it off, but yeah, so I have it on. Again, best performance recommendation is to turn it off and just tab it in out of game. And then everything else here is just pretty much basic. For interface, this is where the real performance comes in. You know, obviously you pick your language, the store, yada yada yada. Your default skin, because I don't want to change anything. I have scale text and icons and display web address bars. Those are the only two things I have checked off, and that is for best performance. All these smooth scrolling GPU, direct write hardware stuff is going to degrade your performance from Steam. Those are the only settings that actually matter. And let's dive into the controller settings. So moving on from the performance settings over to the controller settings, we're going to click controller here. We're going to go into general controller settings. And as you can see, I have nothing selected. Now some people may have this PlayStation configuration support turned on, and that is if you're using another dead zone. If you're using default in-game dead zone, please turn this off. And even if you're not, I still recommend turning it off and getting used to the in-game dead zone because this does add some input lag. If you think about it, your controller communicates to the PC then communicates to Steam if you have this turned on, and then Steam has to translate it to the game. So it adds that Steam input and translation to the entire button press, which adds input lag in turn. So turning this off, your controller then communicates to the computer, which communicates to the game. it skips that whole Steam and translation step, and it just performs better. So uncheck everything if you can, close this out, and for another measure, you can go to Library, Rocket League, Settings, Properties, Controller, and then Disable Steam Input is going to turn that off for the game. It is a game override. It's specifically for Rocket League. It's not going to do it for everything else. But disabling your Steam input is going to give you the best performance here. Alright guys, and now we're moving on to the largest part of this video, and that is going to be the input lag from the game itself. Now, again, this is a reminder, you know, everything I'm going to show you here is going to make your game feel different, and it's going to change the way that your controller interacts with your game, and it's going to change the way that your network interacts with your game. So you may have, you know, a little bit of uncontrollable moments at first once you get used to the dead zone and how your game's actually reading the dead zone, and then you may have some ball teleportation while you're in game if you change some of these network settings. So remember, everything is for your own discretion. Use it at your own risk. If you don't like it, you can change it back. It's not going to offend me. This is an informational video. Do everything at your own risk, but these are my recommendations. Let's get started, and we're going to look at the .ini and configuration files in the game settings. Alright guys, starting off with the .ini files, the configuration files, you'll see up top here, I have these folders for the configurations and these two configuration files themselves. Now this applies to the Rocket League on Steam. I also can show you how to do it on Epic, and I will show you how to do it on Epic in just a moment. That'll be included in this. I'm not going to upload these files anywhere. I'm just going to show you how to edit them yourselves and what to look for in the actual settings. So first we're going to navigate over here. This is going to be in the Documents, My Games, Rocket League, TA Game, Config, File folder, and we're going to go to the TA Input, and we're going to open that up. And when that opens, you're going to see this here. It's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, bunch of words that don't really matter, but what we're going to do is we're going to Control F, and we're going to go looking for this thing called Gamepad Dead, and I believe it stands for Gamepad Dead Zone. Yeah, Gamepad Dead Zone, as you can see here. Now, mine is currently set to 0.1. As you can see, when you initially find this file from this path, Documents, My Games, Rocket League, TA Game, Config, TA Input.ini, and you open it, yours is going to be 0.3. We change that and we go to 0.1. Personally, I have tried lower than 0.1. I do not recommend it. 0.1 is the sweet spot, and it's going to change, again, how your controller interacts with your computer and the game through this file in the dead zone. I'm telling you, this is a night and day difference when you mess with this setting. Please use it at your own risk. I've also tried this double tap time, the tap time, that I literally could not figure out how to jump when I messed around with that. So only touch this Gamepad Dead Zone. Again, you just open up the TA Input.ini file in the Documents, My Games, Rocket League, TA Game, Config, TA Input.ini. You open this up, Control F, Gamepad Dead Zone, find, and it's the first one. It's the only one that pops up, and it's going to be 0.3. Change it to 0.1 and save it. Close that out. You go to Config 2, which again, this is another link. And it's your actual program files. So this path is different. This is program files, Steam, Steam apps, Common, Rocket League, TA Game, Config. So this is the actual Steam settings game files. And then you're going to open up the default input.ini. And this actually, you don't have to go searching because it's right here in front of you. Again, it should be 0.3 when you initially open it. You change it to 0.1. You save it. Once again, that pathing is program files Steam, Steam apps Common, Rocket League, TA Game, Config, and it's the first file, the default input.ini. You open it, and it is the first thing you see at the bottom if your screen is big. If you can't see it, you just open this up and you search the same thing, you find, and you will go, it's going to show up as the first one right here. Okay? Alright, now, as promised, I will show you the Epic pathing as well, and you're going to do the basic same thing, right? Local disk program files, Epic Games, Rocket League, TA Game, Config. There's the file path, default input.ini. Again, mine is within the same viewing distance right here. As you can see, I opened it up. I don't really play on Epic. So I haven't really changed it, but it shows you 0.3, right? So you would change this to 0.1, file save, boom, close this, and again, this is the path, program, Epic, Rocket League, TA game, config, default input, and then you change this to 0.1, the gamepad dead zone. Close that out, launch your game, should be good to go. I do this every day. That's just my personal recommendation. When I boot up, I just boom, open this, copy paste, boom. I just made the files, so I could just copy paste and make it easier for myself. But I do this every day when I get on. So just to keep it consistent. Alright guys, now for the last part of this video, we're going to go over the in-game settings. Now again, these are my in-game settings that I am currently using. If you do not like them, you do not feel comfortable on them, please, please, please do not stick with them. Now, this is after I've made all of my changes, and a lot of them are going to come through right here. As you can see, this looks a little bit different. Normally it's on high. Normally this is also on high, and normally this is on default. Now, currently, this is what is most comfortable for me and actually working. I've been messing around with this for a long time. Also shown in Ravena's video, and I believe she's kind of diving into this stuff right now, if I'm not mistaken. So from her video, I initially went to STS. It was something she had talked about, and I think Rocket Science made a video on or something like that. Again, I'll link her video in the description. Go check it out. It's definitely worth a watch. But these are my current settings. I'm on medium, low, high. So my client send rate is medium, my server send rate is low, and my bandwidth limit is high. My input buffer is set to CSTS, which I believe is the closest to the server, if I'm not mistaken. Now this changes how many packets your computer sends to the server and how many packets the server sends to your computer. Now, it definitely changes the way the ball interacts with the game, because when you go for a kickoff, the server is actually not communicating with your client until the ball is touched. So that is why you get massive lag on kickoffs when the ball is initially touched, and the ball can teleport a lot on the kickoff. So that is something I believe that they're working on for the new engine. I'm not 100% sure. Not many people know anything about the UE5 update for Rocket League. But again, please use this at your own risk. If you don't like it, if you don't want to take the time to get used to it, personally, this feels the best for me. I think it's got the best input lag benefits for me. It's not going to work for everybody, but again, client send rate medium, server send rate low, bandwidth limit high. And if you want to deep dive into why all this stuff with the input buffer works, please go check out our video in the description. I'll go over my other settings just to be safe here, but camera settings is not going to really matter, control is not going to really matter. I do play on a little bit of a higher controller dead zone, because I think playing on a higher controller dead zone makes you feel more stable in the game. And then you can just double your sensitivity if you double what your controller dead zone is, because most people play on 0.05, makes you feel fast. It does react quicker because obviously your dead zone shape is smaller, but I doubled it up and then I doubled my sense, and it feels good for me. So that's what I'm rocking with right now. I don't think you change anything. If you do want to pay attention to what actually goes on with your input buffer, you can turn this network graph on. I find it very distracting, so I don't use it. And you can hop into a private match and see like how it changes after a kickoff and what makes a difference with the input buffer targets and stuff like that. And then you can mess with these settings as you do it, and it will change your target. The lower the better, obviously. But again, use it at your own risk. Play around with it, study it a little bit if you're going to use it. But I think these settings work best for me. Moving on to video settings, most people just have this all on performance. Personally, I find the least bit of input lag when I play on uncapped. I do have a 360 hertz monitor, but I find that the best input lag reductions for me is when I'm on uncapped. Another thing that I found was deleting replays. So I cleared out a bunch of my replays. I actually have 2 folders where I can just click on my demos, pull up all my replays, and then I dump them every now and then. Every few days, I just dump all my replays to another folder, so that my computer is saving them, but it's actually not interacting with the game files. And I noticed a massive change after one day when my Steam cloud synced. It re-downloaded all of my 1100 replays that I had, and then I cleared them out, and I was like, why did they all download? And my game just performed better for the day. I was like, wow, it just was a night and day difference. So those are my in-game settings. Again, mess around with this at your own risk. It does change the way the ball moves, so just be very careful. If you want to get used to it, get used to it. If not, you know, it's up to you. But again, go check out Ravena's video. It'll be linked in the description. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. I'll have my Twitter linked in the description if you want to shoot me a tweet, ask me any questions. I do believe I have my DMs open, so just shoot me a DM if you have any questions. But pretty much this is going to cover it. You know, we went over all the optimizations for the PC itself, the NVIDIA settings, the controller overclocking, MSI Utility, interrupt moderation, Steam settings, and your input buffer and your INI files in the game itself. So yeah, that's going to cover everything. Again, if you have any questions, my Twitter is linked down below. I'll have all the reference links for all of the stuff you've seen here to download in the description as well. This video has been a long time in the making. It actually feels like it's gone by a lot quicker than originally what I had planned, but I guess it's because I got to organize all my ideas and put it all on paper and, you know, record it for you guys. But yeah, like I said, everything's in the description. Drop me a follow if you really, you know, benefited from this video. I'll leave a like, you know, share it with your friends if they also have input lag or heavy car bug in game. You know, just send me some support. Say thank you. You know, let me know if it works for you. I really want to see you guys' feedback. If you actually feel a difference when you make these changes to your computer, you know, does it actually make you feel better in game? Are you feeling more consistent? Does it eliminate all of your input lag problems? Let me know. You know, shoot me a tweet, say thank you. You know, I'll probably drop you a retweet, follow back, whatever. But yeah, have a good day, guys, and I hope this helps.